The Little Match Seller by Hans Christian Andersen. It was terribly cold. Snow was falling, and soon it would be quite dark, for it was the last day in the year, New Year's Eve. Along the street, in the same cold and dark, went a poor little girl in bare feet. Well, yes, it's true, she had slippers on when she left home. But what was the good of that? They were great big slippers which her mother used to wear, so you can imagine the size of them, and they both came off when the little girl scurried across the road just as two carts went whizzing by at a fearful rate. One slipper was not to be found, and a boy ran off with the other, saying it would do for a cradle one day when he had children of his own. So there was the little girl walking along in her bare feet, that was simply blue with cold. In an old apron she was carrying a whole lot of matches, and she had one bunch of them in her hand. She hadn't sold anything all day, and no one had given her a single penny. Poor mite, she looked so downcast as she trudged along, hungry and shivering. The snowflakes settled on her long flaxen hair, which hung in pretty curls over her shoulder. But you may be sure she wasn't thinking about her looks. Lights were shining in every window, and out into the street came the lovely smell of roast goose. You see, it was New Year's Eve. That's what she was thinking about. Over in a little corner between two houses, one of them jutted out rather more into the street than the other. There she crouched and huddled, with her legs tucked under her. But she only got colder and colder. She didn't dare go home, for she hadn't sold a match nor earned a single penny. Her father would beat her, and besides it was so cold at home. They had only the bare roof over their heads, and the wind whistled through, that although the worst cracks had been stopped up with rags and straw. Her hands were really quite numb with cold. Ah, but a little match, that would be a comfort. If only she dared pull one out of the bunch, just one, strike it on the wall and warm her fingers. She pulled one out. Rich, how it spurted and blazed! Such a clear warm flame, like a little candle, as she put her hand round it. Yes, and what a curious light it was. The little girl fancied she was sitting in front of a big iron stove, with shiny brass knobs and brass facings, with such a warm, friendly fire burning. Why, whatever was that? She was just stretching out her toes, so as to warm them too, when out went the flame, and the stove vanished. There she sat with the little stub of burned-out match in her hand. She struck another one. It burned up so brightly, and where the gleam fell on the wall, this became transparent like gauze. She could see right into the room, where the table was laid with a glittering white cloth and with delicate china, and there, steaming deliciously, was the roast goose stuffed with prunes and apples. Then, what was even finer, the goose jumped off the dish and waddled along the floor with the carving knife and fork in its back. Right up to the little girl it came. But then the match went out, and nothing could be seen but the massive cold wall. She lighted another match. Now she was sitting under the loveliest Christmas tree. It was even bigger and prettier than the one she had seen through the glass door at the rich merchant's at Christmas. Hundreds of candles were burning on the green branches, and gay-coloured prints, like the ones they hang in the shop windows, looked down at her. The little girl reached up both hands. Then the match went out. All the Christmas candles rose higher and higher, until now she could see they were the shining stars. Some of them rushed down the sky with a long fiery streak. "That's somebody dying," said the little girl, for her dead granny, who was the only one who had been kind to her, had told her that a falling star shows that a soul is going up to God. She struck yet another match on the wall. It gave a glow all round, and there in the midst of it stood her old grandmother, looking so very bright and gentle and loving. "Oh, Granny," cried the little girl, "do take me with you. I know you'll disappear as soon as the match goes out, just as the warm stove did, and the lovely roast goose, and the wonderful great Christmas tree." And she quickly struck the rest of the matches in the bunch, for she did so want to keep her granny there. And the matches flared up so gloriously that it became brighter than broad daylight. Never had Granny looked so tall and beautiful. She took the little girl into her arms, and together they flew in joy and splendor, up, up to where there was no cold, no hunger, no fear. They were with God. But in the cold early morning, huddled between the two houses, sat the little girl with rosy cheeks and a smile on her lips, frozen to death on the last night of the old year. The new year dawned on the little dead body, leaning there with the matches, one lot of them nearly all used up. She was trying to get warm, people said. Nobody knew what lovely things she had seen, and in what glory she had gone with her old granny to the happiness of the new year.